Hey guys, how are you? My name is Kayla Drummond and I will be doing my YouTube video and my PowerPoint presentation on Chapter 14, Organizational Structure and Design. We are going to start off with slide number 2, Organizational Structure. You're going to be talking about the organizational design, organizational structure, and the organizational chart. To start off with, we'll talk about the organizational design and its process of selecting and managing aspects of organizational structure and culture to enable the organization to achieve their goals. Designing and redesigning the organization in response to internal and external changes is a key managerial function. An organizational structure defines how activities such as task allocation, supervision, and coordination are all directed toward the achievement of the goals of the company. It can also be considered as a viewing glass or the perspective of individuals and their response to the environment and the organization. Last, we're going to talk about the organizational chart. This is simply an illustration of the chain of command and just reports the relationships in a company. It shows the higher levels in an organizational chart who supervise and are responsible for the activities and performance of the lower levels. I think that my job, or my company that I work for, does a great job at implementing these organizational charts. We have, pictures and descriptions of our area directors, our regional directors, people in corporate, what they do and their kind of roles in the company. We are a training location, so we do have a lot of people coming from Dallas and from all over the world, that we're working together with. So I think it's kind of cool to see all the roles and how we all kind of come all together. The next slide. Slide number 3. Characteristics of organizational structure. The organizational structure reflect on the company's span of control, hierarchy, centralization, formalization, and the division of labor. Different structures have different levels of characteristics, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that on the next slide. Slide number 4. Characteristics continued. The division of labor is the assignment of different parts of manufacturing and the processes or tasks that are assigned to different people in order to improve efficiency and make sure that effective work is coming out. The span of control are just a number of people reporting directly to an individual. The hierarchy is the degree to which some employees have formal authority over others. The formalization is the extent to which organizations set rules and procedures that are written down and expected to be followed. I'm pretty sure that every business or organization has something, whether it be like a code of conduct or, guidelines that we should be following. Centralization is the concentration of control of an activity or an organization under a single authority. On slide number 5, we talk about an organizational structure comparison, mechanistic versus organic structure. I personally had never even heard of mechanistic before reading this chapter, so I thought this was kind of interesting. But the mechanistic is pretty much just a theory that rigid traditional bureaucracies with centralized power and hierarchical communications. Job descriptions are uniform and formal rules help guide decision making. Whereas on the other hand, the organic structure is more flexible, it's decentralized, has less defined lines of authority, more open communication channels, and they focus on the adaptability and helping employees accomplish their goals. Slide number 6. I just went a little bit further into some examples of the mechanistic versus organic. Hopefully it will help everyone understand a little bit better. The mechanistic is individual specialization. Employees work separately and specialize in one task. They are simple integrating mechanisms. The hierarchy of authority is well defined. Centralization just makes decision making kept as high as possible, and most communication is vertical. Also, they use extensive use of rules and standard operating procedures. Much is written communication. Informal status in organization is based on the size of the empire. An organization in a network of positions corresponding to tasks. Typically, each person responds to one task. On the other side, we have organic, which kind of breaks it down further. The joint specialization is when employees work together and coordinate tasks. They have authority to control tasks that are delegated, whereas mechanistic has the communication is more verbal. With organic, the communication is more lateral. It integrates mechanisms. Task force and teams are primary integrating mechanisms. Rather than written communication, this is much more verbal communication. And informal status is based on perceived brilliance. An organization and network of persons or teams. People work in different capacities simultaneously and over time. Next slide. Slide number 7. Again, we're going to talk about the types of organizational structures. We're going to talk about the matrix structure. And this is when employees report to both a project or product team leader and also to a functional manager. Matrix structures usually generate complex reporting relationships because more than one time they have more than one boss. Dual reporting relationships can be challenging, but as long as proper communication is implemented and the goals are shared, problems may not come up. We definitely work in a matrix structure where we have not just one boss, but several people. We have someone who works in just front of house, just back of house, only in the bar. So I think it's a good thing to, execute the open door policy, make sure proper communication is being executed. And honestly, I think it's a really good thing. You have more than one person, that can help provide great customer service. The flexibility, I think, is definitely there. It responds quickly to changes, and it's suited for complex activities in uncertain environments. Next slide, we have slide number 8, and we talk about the team-based structure. The structure can create horizontal or vertical teams that can define part or all of the organization. And this structure works best when collaboration inputs from several functional areas are required. I know I talk about work a lot, but I spend most of my time there. When I'm not there, I'm usually doing homework. But we definitely work in teams. I am a server, and when I come into work every night, we work in separate zones, but we always work with another partner. And the goal is to work simultaneously and, kind of be right hand, left hand and work together. I think this creates, better service. You have your buddy that, most of us are all really good friends. So it just works out really well. Next, we have slide number 9. And this talks about the lattice structure. The lattice structure is a cross-functional and cross-level sub-team or sub-teams that are formed and dissolved as necessary to complete specific projects and tasks. Some pros to the lattice structure is direct transactions, natural leadership, and it's common in consulting organizations. Next slide. In slide number 10, we talk about a network organization versus a virtual organization, and the differences between the two. A network organization is a collection of autonomous units or firms that act as a single larger entity, using social mechanisms for coordination or control. In a network structure, managers coordinate and control relationships that are both internal and external to the firm. Whereas on the other hand, the virtual organization is one that contracts almost all of its functions except for a company name and managing the coordination among the contractors. These organizations tend to be extremely complex. But on the other hand, it does reduce costs and it also increases flexibility. Slide number 11, integrating employees. In this slide, we're going to talk about liaison role, direct contact, cross-functional teams, and the task force teams. I'm going to talk about the direct contact first. And this is just getting managers from different units to communicate and work together to coordinate or identify and solve shared problems. A liaison role is when a manager or team member is assigned to a role and is held responsible and accountable for communicating and coordinating with other groups. The task force is when a specific problem needs to be addressed. Organizations often create a temporary committee to handle these issues. And lastly, the cross-functional team is when integration needs are permanent and more complex. These teams are also used. They address specific problems and recurring needs. Also, a task force is usually between 4 and 12 people, and they are used for something short-term to address a specific problem. And last but not least, slide number 12 talks about the communities of practice. These are groups of people who share expertise and interests in a joint enterprise that informally binds them together. Talk about the domain, the practice, and the community. The domain is a community of practice that is not merely a club of friends or a network of connections between people. It has an identity defined by a shared domain of interest. Membership therefore implies a commitment to the domain and therefore a shared competence that distinguishes members from other people. The community, in pursuing their interests in their domain, members engage in joint activities and discussions. These people help each other and they share information. They build relationships that enable them to learn from one another. Lastly, we're going to talk about the practice. A community of practice is not merely a community of interests, but people who like certain kinds of movies, for instance, things that bring people together. Members of a community of practice are practitioners. They develop a shared repertoire of resources, experiences, tools, ways of addressing recurring problems, and in short, a shared practice. This takes time and sustains interaction. Thank you guys so much for watching my video and looking at my PowerPoint presentation. I will leave you guys with one last thing, and this is my question for all of you. What are some advantages and disadvantages of team-based structure in the workplace? How has it affected you? And just tell me a little bit about it. Thank you guys so much. I hope you guys have a good night and good luck in the rest of the